You can find his face and name printed on an exhaustive pile of consumer goods: high-end bottled water, branded board games, premium vodka, and steaks. Most people assume the guy whose name is printed on all these boxes owns a highly successful, cash-rich corporate empire. The reality involves massive debt, failed airlines, and bankrupt casinos. The billionaire persona is a carefully marketed illusion. To figure out how this specific facade took over the globe, we have to trace the playbook back to its origin. We have to look at a childhood that taught him to prioritize the spotlight over the actual balance sheet. Donald Trump grew up in Queens, New York, a river away from the glittering skyscrapers of Manhattan. His father, Fred Trump, built a massive fortune out here, utilizing government programs to construct affordable, middle-income apartments. Fred squeezed 9 days of work into a 7-day week, and he expected absolute dominance from his children. He took his son to construction sites and drilled a specific philosophy into his head. You have to be a king, and you have to be a killer in everything you do. At age 13, that relentless pressure was redirected into the rigid structure of the New York Military Academy. He thrived under the strict hierarchy, winning medals for the cleanest room and the best-made bed. It wasn't enough to do the work. You had to be publicly ranked as number one. In 1964, father and son attended the opening ceremony for a massive feat of engineering connecting Brooklyn and Staten Island. Sitting in the crowd, young Donald noticed something strange. The man who actually designed the bridge was standing off in a corner, completely ignored by the politicians taking the credit. The man who designed the bridge remained a ghost at his own celebration, while the crowd focused on the men at the podium. To Trump, that silence was a warning. If you step back and let other people take the credit, you end up as somebody's sucker. By his early 30s, he abandoned his father's reliable housing business in the outer boroughs. He crossed the river into Manhattan to buy up decaying buildings and coat them in marble and gold, chasing the prestige and visibility he craved. Almost immediately, the Justice Department sued his family's company, documenting a widespread pattern of racial discrimination against Black and Hispanic renters. Instead of settling quietly, he countersued the federal government for $100 million. He eventually had to sign an agreement to change his rental practices, but he forced a deal where he never had to admit guilt. He declared it a complete win. He realized that attention, even negative attention, gave him leverage. He actively courted the New York tabloids, feeding reporters gossip about his failing marriages, his affairs, and his extravagant lifestyle. The front pages kept his name in the public eye. He even started calling financial journalists using fake names, like John Barron. Disguising his voice, he would pose as his own PR executive, feeding publications highly inflated numbers about how much the family business was actually worth. This chart shows exactly how well that worked. He held an actual net worth of roughly $5 million, but by feeding reporters fantasy numbers over the phone, he manipulated a major business magazine into publishing a $100 million net worth. Generating real capital takes time and carries enormous risk, but controlling the public perception of capital requires nothing but a phone call and a willing audience. The story of success proved far more valuable than the reality of it. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, he stamped his name on an airline, an American Football League, and a string of over-the-top casinos in Atlantic City. Nearly all of these physical businesses eventually collapsed under massive debt and multiple bankruptcy filings. To survive, he stopped building things. Instead of taking out massive loans to pour concrete, he pivoted his strategy to intellectual property. Third-party developers would finance, build, and manage high-rises around the world. He simply charged them a fee to place his name in giant gold letters on the facade. He did the exact same thing with men's ties, bottled water, and steaks. When these independent projects inevitably went under, he walked away with his licensing fee intact. He absorbed none of the financial fallout, all while the public continued to see him as the mastermind behind a global network of luxury assets. By the early 2000s, the novelty of the branded ties and the glossy magazine covers was wearing thin. The persona needed a much larger platform to stay relevant. A reality television producer pitched him a concept that would run for 14 seasons. He was cast as the ultimate, decisive executive, presiding over a pristine boardroom while contestants fought for his approval. Tens of millions of viewers tuned in every week. The tightly edited episodes scrubbed away any mention of the casino bankruptcies or the crushing debts, replacing them with a streamlined, flawless caricature of American success. This 50-year trajectory was built on a practiced talent for storytelling. He bypassed the traditional metrics of business management to focus entirely on the pitch, the branding, and the persistence of the fantasy. When he launched his bid for the White House, the tactics remained exactly the same. He generated daily controversies to dominate the press cycle, refused to apologize or admit mistakes, and offered voters a heavily dramatized version of reality. He learned as a kid staring at a bridge in New York that invisible competence is a losing game. By relentlessly prioritizing the spotlight, he proved that you do not need to be the architect to own the building. You just need to control the narrative.